How can IBS affect the bladder? Well, let me count the ways. But before we do that, we need to understand why there's such a strong connection between these two areas. The digestive system and the bladder are in direct contact with each other. So when one is affected, it may trigger a response in the other area. These two vital organs work together to get rid of waste products, and we need them to function optimally so that we can function optimally. Do you ever notice that after urinating, you may need to have a bowel movement, or that when you're done with the bowel movement, you often soon need to urinate? When your bladder is full, it is taking up space in your abdomen. Another way of saying this is that it's putting pressure on your colon. And when your colon is full, it's putting pressure on your bladder. When either one is emptied, that pressure is relieved. And if the bladder is emptied, then stool may now move through more freely through your colon, thus leading to a bowel movement. And if your colon is full, then it's putting pressure on your bladder, making you want to urinate. Can IBS cause an overactive bladder or urinary problems? There are different forms of IBS that involve different symptoms. Some involve constipation and some diarrhea and some both. When you have constipation, by definition, you have a full colon because you're constipated. Therefore, your colon is putting pressure on your bladder, which can cause urinary symptoms such as having to urinate more frequently than usual. However, the close proximity of the bladder and the colon can lead to problems other than just pressure from fullness in one putting pressure on the other. So when you have IBS with diarrhea, for example, you have a very fast-acting colon. And we know this because by definition, diarrhea is stool that is moving really quickly through your colon. So in this case, the colon may be spasming or cramping. And this spasming or cramping in the colon can physically impact the bladder. And that could cause it to trigger the feeling that you have to urinate, thus leading to an overactive bladder. In the same way that IBS can cause an overactive bladder, it can also cause urinary incontinence. So all of this pressure and irritation directed on the bladder may result in bladder function that you can no longer control. Now note that IBS can cause an overactive bladder and urinary incontinence even if you don't have constipation or diarrhea. So many cases of IBS don't involve constipation or diarrhea, but they may still involve cramping or abdominal pain. And in this case, cramping can irritate the bladder, leading to more frequent urination. Or it can cause bladder pain when you're having a bowel movement, or a bladder ache right after urination. So this is often diagnosed as interstitial cystitis, which is strongly correlated with IBS. Now, what about the differences between urinary symptoms in men and urinary symptoms in women? IBS urinary symptoms can be very similar between men and women, although in men, they may also experience problems with the prostate. And you can learn more about this by watching my video on IBS and prostate problems. In women, IBS has more potential to contribute to urinary tract infections, and this is due to the close proximity in the anatomy of women between the urethra and the anus. And if you have diarrhea, for example, then you may have a lot more bowel movements than normal, and they're of course really loose, and you may even have accidents. So this increases the chance that the urethra is going to get exposed to bacteria that's in the stool, and that's of course in the colon. So that increases your chance of getting a urinary tract infection. IBS is also related to interstitial cystitis, and that involves pain in the bladder and is primarily found in women. And you can read more about the differences between IBS in men and IBS in women by watching my videos on those two subjects. Now you know how IBS can affect the bladder. The good news is that IBS can be solved, and therefore there is hope for your bladder too. How is IBS affecting your quality of life?